My name is John Strohfus, and I'd like to talk a little bit today about all sorts of things. And I keep trying to figure out a way to give a presentation without telling my story, but I think just telling my story, it hits on a journey that crosses commercials, life a little bit, some emotions, farming certainly, food ingredients, and the whole broad spectrum. So Mark also asked me to be a little bit visual today, so I've got a Google photo album there, a whole bunch of different things that we could go into, but the main thing is this is a small intimate group, so let's just have a dialogue on stuff. So if I'm talking about something and you got a question, let's do that instead of me talking for 20 minutes and then asking for stuff at the end. So this has been great. First of all, I appreciated your comments, Seth, and your presentation. I resonated a lot with that, and I'll probably overlap a few of those things. Which one am I hit, Mark? Go for it.
Right there.
This one. So here's my cover cropping credential. So I'll get into kind of how we got to where we are on the farming side, and I wish we were doing more, but we've been experimenting with cover crops and stuff now for about 4 or 5 years. So I'm talking to you today as John Strohfus, but I'm representing a couple different pillars. So I grew up on a very small farm, 95-acre farm. My dad was a South Dakota kid. He grew up in Watertown, South Dakota, Hazel, actually. And my cousins still farm around there. And he went to work for Coca-Cola and spent his life in corporate America and boarded horses ever since I was a kid. So our family continues to board horses today. And I always kind of say Coca-Cola kind of built our farm. So, we acquired acreage, and we're in a very urban area, rural area of Denmark Township. I'm the town chairperson of my local township, which is about 3,000 people, so we're kind of a small city. But anyway, we're right along the river valley, nestled in between Mississippi and the St. Croix rivers, and we farm now. I'll kind of get to that evolution, but 800 to 900 acres, a lot in Minnesota and more in Wisconsin. So my dad passed in 2008, and I was working in IT for about 19 years. I worked for a company called Accenture, formerly Anderson Consulting. Got to see a whole lot of things. It was an amazing time. I went to school at St. Cloud State. I was a marketing guy and a microcomputer study minor, which was kind of when the internet was born. Thank you, Al Gore, for creating the internet. So I didn't think I'd ever be a farmer. I didn't think I'd ever be in the food industry. I thought I'd take over our boarding operations someday. And I was having a good time, and then life throws you a curveball. I was very close with my dad, and each of you have different personal relationships with families and turnover in farms and different things, and they all impact people differently. And it was very traumatic for me, I'll just say that. And I have a sister, I have a stepmother, estate settlement, different challenges in a really emotional time. But basically my wife and I bought out our family farm. We continue to board horses today. And then I said, I've kind of been a lifelong entrepreneur. I've always been doing stuff on the side when I was a kid. And in college as well, I started a small company. But I took the opportunity to look at the farm differently and say, okay, how do we make something that I grew up with different, unique? One of the things was a group of us got together and bought a couple head of beef. So a side of beef, we'd buy halves. And my friend said, hey, you got the farm now, why don't you raise 5 head of cattle for us, and you got the market. So I said, well, why not, right? So we started doing that, and we still do a little bit of that today. So then what happened, kind of flash forward, so this isn't a 4-hour presentation of my life, but I started working with a neighbor. He had some small acreage. We did hay. So we expanded growing hay. I took all of our tillable land that we rented out to the neighbors, because we never row crop farmed when I was a kid. We just had hay production for the horses. That was it. So we took all that back. We started working together, added some equipment, and just increased our farm operation on the forage side. And then I had the opportunity in 2016 to grow hemp in Minnesota. So we were one of the pilot states for hemp production. And the entrepreneurial took over the brain. The emotional of the entrepreneurial side of me took over my brain and said, I just want to be the first guy to do that. I know nothing about hemp. I thought hemp was the stock of the marijuana plant. And I just said, I want to be the first guy to do this, and we'll get a bunch of press, and I think we can make a business out of this. So in 2016, we founded Minnesota Hemp Farms, and also the brand Field Theory and Field Theory Foods. So Minnesota Hemp Farms, the plan was grow hemp for grain. CBD wasn't a thing yet, really. That kind of happened later in 2018. And sell bulk food. So figure out how to process this grain, sell it direct, because the processors make all the money. That was sort of ingrained in me. And how to do it and be capital light, because IT taught me how to be capital light. Now we farm. It's total opposite of capital light. So I'm a bit of a paradox in my own self. So we started Minnesota Hemp Farms 2016. We're very successful in working with toll processors and being able to move our food into different markets. By the way, before I forget this, on the table over there is a whole bunch of our products. I don't want to take any of that home. There's hemp hearts, there's pancake and muffin mix. None of the products have THC in them. There's topical CBD balm, there's a tincture, there's some stuff for your dog too, some pet formula. So just grab it. Grab 4 or 5 things, don't worry about it. One of the things we talked about in the hemp side was plant-based proteins. This is an old quote, 2016, about game-changing trend for the future is a consumption of plant-based proteins. It's 2024. That is still a mega trend that we are in right now. I'm not going to go into all this, but hemp side of it, there was the grain side, there was the CBD side, and then the fiber side. So we've grown hemp on our farm every year except the last 2. And the reason we stopped growing hemp on my farm is because we're transitioning to organics. And hemp is a huge nitrogen user, like corn. And it's really difficult to grow unless you have a great manure source for nitrogen, at least on the grain side. And there's another side of the story, partner farm on the bigger farm operation. My farming partner, after the first year, he's like, you can have that hemp all for yourself if you want to keep going with it. And so that was the company, and we shared the revenue from the grain side the first couple of years, but he was kind of out on that, and he's like, your farm, you can keep doing whatever you want, but I don't want to do it on any of our rented conventional ground. It's too much work, etc. So I was sort of forced to grow hemp organically because I wanted and had already started transition on our farm to organics. But anyway, hemp is a really fun crop to grow. It's a lot of work on the post-harvest side more than anything, but it's what I like about hemp and where it relates to regenerative agriculture is it's another crop. So, you think about soil health and one of those tenets that Mark was talking about, part of that is diversity. So, You know, if you got corn, you got soybeans, maybe you have alfalfa, maybe you have wheat or oats. You know, more small grains you can bring in, sunflower if you can do that on the oilseed side. Hemp would be an oil seed that would fit that, but again, a high nitrogen use oil seed. Lots of challenges with growing hemp. That isn't a campfire that actually shot out of the back of the combine. Old International 1480 combine. First year, we used the same model. I didn't have a combine. I'd never combined a crop before, by the way. So hemp was actually the first combine crop I ever harvested. So all the neighbors are like freaking out, right? Ragweed is our nemesis in our fields and water hemp, but ragweed, as you know, especially in beans, when you got ragweed this tall and you're going through with your grain platform, freaks some people out, and I'm like, it's no problem. We combine basically a whole field of what looks like stocky ragweed, right? So eyes wide open going into new crops. I talk more people out of growing hemp than into growing hemp because I want them to do it for the right reason. They know it's going to be a lot of work. They want some crop diversity. We experimented with growing for fiber. When fiber markets in South Dakota, actually, South Dakota Hemp Association, and they've got a good fiber processing not too far from here, and it's still on the up and coming though. So I'm waiting for stability in this fiber market. We grow a lot of hay. We harvest 200, 300 acres of hay year on year, and if you got haying tools, most of the time you can meet fiber spec and work through that. So that was actually really fun. The market just wasn't there at that point. And then the third type was CBD, right? So this is completely different type of agriculture production. We've tried to modernize it, right, and make it fit our traditional mass production kind of model, and that really hasn't worked very well industry at large. So it's still kind of more of a niche, I'll call it more vegetable, like growing hops. It's a very similar kind of production process, in my opinion right now. We did it 1 year. I had a market for it. I contracted it. I got in, I got out right as this huge crash. At the time it was, you're gonna make $4,000 to $10,000 an acre. That was the talk at the time that this was planted. We got our money back. We probably made $4,000 on 3 acres in the backyard. And we got the governor to come out and help us out for some free government cheese. But it's a fun crop in that way because it still gets some PR. So then what happened, Minnesota Hemp Farms is a company. We had the CPG products out there, and then we have these relationships with brands, and they start asking us, hey, can you grow more things for us? Can you grow sunflower? Yeah, sure. Never grown a sunflower in my life. Never grew hemp before either. And this, by the way, is now the farm has sort of expanded. So we've had neighbor farm go out of business, landlord tenant changes, things like that. In the 800 to 900 acres that we farm now, the farming operation is with a friend of mine, and so we partner farm together, but that's across about 40 fields. So 800, 900 acres, 40 fields, right? So we dream about a 40-acre tract, or our biggest field is 120 acres, but it's split up with trees and water runs. So not very efficient versus a lot of the bigger fields. These brands started asking us to provide more ingredients of different things, and we tried to incorporate that into the farm, growing those things on the farm. So we did that, and then we contracted with other people. And that's when Field Theory went more from a CPG brand to a food ingredient company. So now we're processing sunflower, again through toll processors, working with oats, working a lot with buckwheat, looking at some other specialty crops as well. So now we go to market as Field Theory Foods. We still have hemp in bulk that we sell under Minnesota Hemp Farms brand, but we sell all sorts of other ingredients and contract with growers. And the other convergence here that's happened is regenerative ag. So 6 years ago, customer that we grew sunflowers for is Simple Mills. So if you know them, they're a great company. If you don't know them, check them out. They've got lots of great products, gluten-free products. And the buyer said, hey, what do you think about regenerative ag? And I was on the phone with her and I Googled it because I didn't know what the hell she was talking about. So I've learned a lot since then, learned a lot about soil health, but that light bulb kind of went on after I started looking at it. I said, there's a demand starting for regenerative agriculture ingredients. And there's a lot of big companies that probably want to capitalize on this, but they're too big to have identity preserved crops, do all the testing, and then have some authenticity in the production and give transparency to the grower. And I'm like, I think we can do that. So it didn't happen immediately, but for the last 3 or 4 years now, we've been very focused on regenerative ag supply chain and connecting brands that are seeking those ingredients with our company as a supply company and give them transparency to the grower. It's aspirational, so we don't have all these things. Everything we sell isn't regenerative. We sell conventional and organic products, but we're trying to connect that new supply chain, which gets to the consumer, which I'll get to in another minute too, talking about what the consumer is kind of looking for. And I'm going to speed up a lot, but so we've got retail still. We have specialty products, including hemp. These are some of the grains, seeds, oils, flours. We work with buckwheat, flax. Kernza was mentioned. So obviously the beer side, right? Because we're here drinking beer, talking about agriculture, connecting with beer. Kernza is great because it's a perennial crop, and you get multiple years of production out of it. There's some challenges with Kernza, and I'm sure people will talk about that. But Kernza and rye too gets kind of overlooked. I'm looking for new markets for rye because the easiest cover crop to start with is cereal rye. You go out and broadcast it in Minnesota. We've done it. And September 24th, I was out broadcasting cereal rye in the spring. Guess what's growing? Cereal rye. It's very easy. But it'd be nice if we had a grain market for it too, not just a cover crop. So you could do some different things. You could, harvest the grain, get some cash value out of that, and then replant something else or put another cover in prior. So regen ag, what is it? How to engage brands. So this is a lot of farmers now are seeking these connections. So they want to go to direct or work with the brand. Some of them, if they have the aspiration, the stomach, or the passion to do that. And some of them can, but it's hard for the brands to work with farmers. It's hard for farmers to work with brands because they start talking about all these things, food safety, micro testing, what's your gluten part per million or part per billion, and you're like, oh my God. That's why there is an aggregator. That's why there is the cleaner, the processor, and the things like that. So what we're trying to do is fill that intermediary gap. So we're trying to bring them a new market, give the brands transparency, but take that middle work out. Simple Mills is one I mentioned. Again, doing a lot of really great things to promote regenerative agriculture and soil health. 7 Sundays is another brand that we work with. They're in the Twin Cities. We help them with sunflower. They do a lot with oats as well. Live Pacha is another brand that we just started working with about a year and a half ago. What's really cool about 7 Sundays and Pacha is a buckwheat bread. It's all organic, and their requirement is that it's regenerative verified. So, first of all, is anybody organic farm? No? You guys? It's okay. It's okay. It's funny because it's always us organic people are like, I don't know, who's gonna give me a funny look? In organic, regenerative organic certified, ROC, that was created and promoted by some big brands like Dr. Bronner's and some big companies with good intention, definitely an agenda, which will, fulfill them as well as hopefully the environmental goals that they're seeking. But ROC is a bar that you have to meet. It's a litmus test. You're either there and you're not. Okay. So if you're not there, then what do you do? And then if you're organic, that's great. You can use regenerative organic certified. If you're conventional, you want to start doing really awesome things to build soil health. What do? They're not going to help you. They're not going to help you connect with the premium for your market, give you a support structure to do those things. So there's another option. It's called Soil Climate Initiative. It used to be Soil Carbon Initiative. It's not a carbon credit program by any means. It's a new framework. It was built with farmer input. It meets the farmer where they are. You could be moldboard plowing, disking, doing everything that is quote unquote bad today for soil, and you can be a SCI farm year one as long as you enroll in the program, you make a commitment to making improvements on soil health, and you start working in the verification process. So that is a game changer to me. I love SCI because it's organic and conventional. Liz is a huge part of that. Working with soil regen and getting Haney testing done on your farm, and the support, the town halls, just a community for people that they don't know anything about it, but they think that this is the way to go, right? So that's the community to hitch your wagon to. So I've been part of that for a couple years. Every pound that is sold to these guys today is SCI regen verified. And retailers are starting to look at that, like Whole Foods, they are pushing for ROC certified and organic, and SCI verified will be approved by Whole Foods. So there's some other ones out there, Regenified, ROC I mentioned, SCI, and there's probably going to be more to come. The point is that there's a lot of interest in this. The market's trying to figure it out. The aggregators are trying to figure out. The farmers are trying to figure it out. And it's a win-win, hopefully, because these practices on farm are going to improve soil health. That's going to make an important improvement just on the farm side. And then hopefully you can capture a premium for this, at least till everybody starts doing it. And again, that's sort of what we're involved with right now, trying to connect the premium to the farmer and make the supply chain. And it's really hard, I'll say that too. I mean, you think about our commodity system right now, where corn and soybeans go, where wheat goes, it's a mega, and we do some trading in some of these things, like, someone wants 10 loads of rye or 10 loads of wheat or something conventional, and I can make 2 cents on it, putting A to B. We'll do that. But, it's a system right now, and people that are trying to do the specialty stuff, it's not very easy. These are just some things we had on SCI going into all that, but anyway, I've got lots of pictures around things that we've done for cover cropping and stuff like that, but no one interrupted me, so I'll just pause right now for questions, and then I can show you some other things that we've done and are doing. I see you thinking.
So you mentioned something about you're taking the break from the hemp, because the nitrogen intensity that it requires. So are you looking for a manure source to help you reintegrate it, or where is your next step with that?
For hemp in particular. So for hemp is a small percent of our overall revenue right now. And I've been involved with hemp for quite a while, so I know where the hemp is when I need it. So I would like to have it in my backyard always, and maybe if we have some conventional fields again back on my ground, I will do that. But right now I just source the grain from other places. But in our area, because it's so urbanized, we don't have close proximity to livestock. We have about 30, 40 head of cattle that my friend Ben and I run together. Just logistically, I have a horse boarding stable and that kind of optics, and we've had, a pen of cattle out there, 10, 15 of them. And, I'd love to be grazing them. I'd love to rotationally graze them. For me personally, it's just the logistics and management of doing some of that. But we don't have, hog farm would be awesome, for liquid, big dairy. Those are all 30, 40 miles away. So practically getting that on farm is difficult. Turkey litter is probably the easiest and what we would look at for that. But so one huge point I just totally skipped over on the agronomy side is, my farming partner, he kind of likes it black. So he's like, I want it black, I want a nice level seed bed, doesn't want to take a lot of time to invest in knowledge in this, right? Because margins are thin. This is the way we can grow 200 bushel corn. This is the way we can grow 50 plus bushel soybeans. Do what Pioneer Agronomist says. I love my Pioneer Agronomist. He's great. And in the conventional corn and soybeans we grow, he's going to help us get the best yield. I don't know if it's the best profit. And I have a completely different mindset now because I look at organics. I'm like, we're putting cover crop seed down, so that's an input cost. We've used very few outside inputs. I've been trying to just do it all and see what the land gives us, just from rotating the crop. Now, I see some deficiencies, certainly nitrogen. We have horses, and we try to compost that horse manure 6-9 months. Horse manure is not a great nitrogen source, really, and it's got some weed problems, which doesn't help in the organic. But basically, we're trying to do all that really with cover crops and limited manure sources. That's our only fertility system right now. And on the profitability side, whenever I get in an argument about this topic, I'm like, he's like, hey, that organic corn looked like crap. Yep. When we started out, it was 150 bushel organic corn. Now through 2 corn rotations, after other crops, sunflower, buckwheat, soybeans, etc. So what? It was 98 bushel last year. Sold that for, at the time that was $10 bushel corn. This is round numbers. 100 bushel corn, $10. 200 bushel corn, $5, $4 maybe 5, maybe 6. But how much input did I have in my organic corn crop? $200-$300? Yeah. Cultivator pass, 2, 3 maybe. Okay, fine. It wasn't $600 or $800 or $1,000 on my conventional corn so that I could double my profit. So we are, and a lot of people talk about this, we're trapped in this commodity system, the yield game, and competing with your neighbors for yield and what looks the best. Who gives a rip if there's a couple weeds out there. Yes, they're robbing. Yes, they're robbing some nitrogen, might be stealing a bushel or two. Does it really make sense to go blast the whole goddamn field to get rid of, 2% weeds? Will they proliferate? Will they, increase the next year? Probably not if we have a good crop rotation. And then God forbid, let's put it back into alfalfa or something where we cut it 3 times a year, because that wipes out a hell of a lot of weeds. I love alfalfa. I love hay production. I don't like it in organic because I just look at how much phos, P and K I'm pulling off that field and all the stover. So that's the only thing I hate about growing hay in the organic system.
What is the height difference between hemp and so-called marijuana?
The height difference?
Height.
Oh, the hype.
The news media wants you to believe that hemp or CBC or whatever is marijuana.
Yeah. Well, if you're confused, so am I. Okay. We could talk a long time about this, but I've been very critical of what's happened in the hemp industry in the last 2 or 3 years, in particular in Minnesota, because started in a lot of great legislation. Minnesota was one of the best places to grow hemp under the pilot program. Unfortunately, when we had full-on commercialization in the 2018 Farm Bill, it actually made it harder to grow hemp than it did in Minnesota under the pilot program. That was just through some testing and some other stupid things. But basically, I spent my whole life in hemp talking about hemp is not marijuana. You cannot get high from hemp. Hemp is not intoxicating. So the best way I explain it for all this time has been hemp is just like corn. You have field corn and you have sweet corn. Cannabis is cannabis. Cannabis is hemp if the THC level is high enough. Then it's marijuana or intoxicating hemp. That's the only difference. All the properties of the plant, they're all the same, just like all the properties of corn are the same. They just have stronger, different attributes. Sweet corn versus different varieties. White corn, purple corn, just different attributes of it. All that is hemp versus marijuana is the level of THC in the plant. And hemp genetics have been bred for a long time now to be under the threshold. There's no need to test them anymore. Those certified varieties, we have certified seed. It's not like, we have this random seed being grown. So then the point is, what happened? Minnesota and some other states tried doing this. Minnesota passed a law that said, and I should just say, when you process, you're aggregating material. So even though it's 0.01% of something, when you're processing it, you're aggregating all this material and you're refining it to make CBD liquid. Okay? If we harvested 10 acres, we'd get a little jar or a couple little jars of hemp extract, and that would have CBD in it, and it would have the fractional little bits of THC. Well, when you put them all together and put them all together and put them all together, all those little bits add up. It's still not very much, but it's a little bit more, okay? It's something you could do something with and actually get intoxicating. Minnesota said, if it's hemp-derived THC, we'll let you put a certain amount into the edible, a gummy, or a water or something like that. So you have hemp-derived THC. So Minnesota's the only place in the country that could do this. They created an awesome new market for themselves, and they made me look like an idiot for saying you cannot get high from hemp. Because even though this little bit is there, and you take 2 gummies, which by the way, our gummies have no THC in them, because I'm a purist on the hemp side. And there's nothing wrong with THC, and I'm like, legalization is totally fine with me. The problem I have is you just bastardized what the definition of hemp is. And so now, people that were confused before Me too. Remember, I thought hemp was marijuana stalks. Now they're like, well, can you get high from hemp? Well, you could if someone took artificially and put THC into this product at this particular level, and then you ate 4 or 5 gummies. Yeah, you could be like smoking a joint. There's enough in there that you would have an intoxicating effect. Put it in a beer, tastes good, awesome. So, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that I don't like that we have spent so much time and energy to say hemp versus the rest of cannabis, and now we just conflated it. And the only reason we did that is because we couldn't get on with legalization. Now everybody's getting on with legalization anyway, and now we have this confusing thing in the middle, and then we still have hemp food in the grocery store or pancakes with hemp protein in it that have nothing to do with THC. Sorry, long answer. All right, Mark, I can be done. I could show pictures. I could, whatever. I probably talked a long time.
Let's see a couple pictures of your cover crop.
Okay.
While he's doing that, I'll just make a comment. One of the great things about what John's doing in Minnesota with our cold climate, it can be a little challenging to get cover crops established and make good use of them as a practice. But what we always are talking about is that diversification principle. If we can find ways and markets for a third crop, a small grain of some kind, a buckwheat of some kind, something different than warm season corn and soybean monocultures, and we have those markets created, farmers will plant them, and they'll be able to get full season cover crop growth after those crops because of the harvest difference. They're able to spread their labor out more and improve the soil quality and soil health, which ultimately leads to clean water. So it's a full cycle. So we need all parts and pieces of that. You can't just, as a farmer, run out and grow a different crop without a market. We have to have buyers and end uses of that crop before we can put a seed in the ground. So what John's doing is helping facilitate that and create that opportunity. Very essential to the whole process.
So I mentioned, if you never used a cover crop before, cereal rye is by far the easiest. I go out there broadcast it heavy. I don't plant it early enough. This was green planting soybeans into cereal rye. And of course I did that at night so that you can't see it. But that was one of the earliest, things that we did. And now, there's all these Facebook groups, everything cover crops. I love that one. You see guys doing this all the time. It's almost normal practice now, and they're talking about which planter setups you should use and how to change your closing wheels. Again, we don't do much of this. It's all on my farm, and it's all organic. And I keep missing this point. So I'm doing everything the hardest way possible. The easiest thing to do is be a conventional farmer, start using some cover crops, and look at all these practices, like in particular, roller crimping. So you put our seed down, do this, then we go roller crimp. My planter's not set up very good, so I have some hair pinning so I don't get that seed placement and that trench closed. Just put a little more seed down, who cares? Or throw it in a little deeper and who cares? That's my mindset because we're talking about, 100-acre organic farm. If you got 2,000 acres, that's gonna have different financial and, whatever impacts for your farm. But I'm gonna try to get to a good picture of that field after we roller crimped. So you can see ragweed in here, and this probably came from the horse manure. So ragweed in this field is my nemesis. It is terrible. So we did roller crimp soybeans. So I came off of sunflower. So corn, my rotation in this organic is corn, sunflower, mop up all the excess nitrogen. Sunflower, huge root system, really able to go find nutrients. then go to buckwheat because it's a small grain, solid seed, and then soybeans after that or some other legume. We're trying red beans this year, small red edible beans. So my cereal rye stand was not very thick. That's the problem with cereal rye. If you don't get it thick enough, it's not going to choke out enough weeds, and then this system will fail because you have weed escapes. And I thought, hey, if I roller crimp it normally one time, 2, 3 times, 4 times, because I'm going over ragweed, 3 weeks later, I've got 4 ways gooseneck ragweed coming up because the roller crimping just doesn't kill it. So then last year we had weed zapper. You guys ever seen the weed zapper? I'll show it quick here if I got. This is an incredible machine. I wish I could afford to own one for 100 acres. Guy came and did it. You can see soybeans are in there somewhere. They actually look pretty good. They look better in the ragweed because they're bushing and branching and doing all the things that they do.
What does the weed zapper do?
So it's basically, it's a generator on the back and it's electrodes on the front, and every one of those, I don't know if you can see with the lighting, but all those flashes of flame, that is the electrode touching the plant stalk or the leaf and electrocuting the plant all the way down to the root. And when you go walk by this 5 minutes later, it's like your spray 3 or 4 days later after you sprayed in your field. It's instantly dead. The problem is with this field, it worked awesome on the ragweed, but we had a lot of foxtail, and the foxtail was just like 2 or 3 inches above the bean canopy. So if I could afford to have him come back a week later after the foxtail was up another 2 or 3 inches, he could have probably wiped out almost all my foxtail. Or if I would have waited longer to have him out, but he was on a schedule, because then we could have got the foxtail and the ragweed, but the ragweed would have been even taller.
So does that zap just affect like the stalk, or will it like stop like the roots from keep growing? Or
Yeah, all the way to the root. I mean, it's dead. There is no doubt. It's phenomenal, but most of the people that have these have this love-hate relationship with them, they call them, because they like it, it's effective, but you have to have the conditions be right and multiple passes usually.
so is that kind of like a flame weeder on steroids? Or?
Yeah, well, the flame weeder has its place too, because you can use the flame weeder at an earlier stage. I would love to have a flame weeder as well, because that's going to get all your in-row stuff before it gets up and big, and especially on the small grasses and things like that. But I can't afford to have that. So I'm trying to do all this stuff really hard, right? A lot of cover cropping, not all the right tools to be successful in the organic system with all the cover crops, and doing it in that organic system. Because can you imagine after roller crimping those beans, if it was conventional, and then I could come along, when that ragweed starts showing and the foxtail starts showing, and I could hit it with a chemical and just take care of it, clean it up. One pass chemical. I still have temperature control. I have erosion control. I have a better growing environment for that plant and better soil health as part of that. But I use the chemical. So Tom Cotter, he's my mentor in Minnesota Soil Health. He talks a lot about this, simple system. I did one thing good, I did one thing bad. Keep it simple. I'm reducing my tillage, but I used a chemical. Okay, so that's a 0. Try not to go negative, try to be positive. So this is where, when I go back to Soil Climate Initiative and the verification programs, I get in a lot of arguments with a lot of organic people, because they think regenerative farming has to be organic. You cannot regenerative farm in conventional. And I think that I totally disagree with that, because I can show them all these examples. I can say, if this was my conventional field, I'd roller crimp soybeans every single year if my farming partner was along for the ride, which he's not. So I'm trying to prove that I can do it swimming upstream in organic with all the handicaps that I have. And guess what? If I had a little Roundup to use, bam, I'd be so much more positive than negative.
So what you're basically advocating for is like a more balanced use of conventional agriculture and also regenerative and like organic methods.
Yeah, I'm saying we should start somewhere. You know?
Your ultimate goal is to be completely insecticide, herbicide, fertilizer free, right?
I would like that, you know. Yeah. I mean, I'd like to improve my organic matter. I'd like to have that system sustain itself as much as I can without, you know, a train wreck of weeds. That's kind of my immediate.
What stage is your rye at, and how soon after planting the beans do you roll?
So I've learned a lot about this. Have to roller crimp at pollination, after pollination. The longer after pollination or anthesis, the better. If you roller crimp too early, you won't get a full kill. And then even though I was, in this case this year, I was probably 2 weeks after pollination, we still had small rye growing, sprouting, you know, new germination, so you get these little bits. And if you contract with us on the food company side, a lot of our stuff is organic, gluten-free, and so this is not a great system. So I'm growing right here. Oh, that's my dog Lucy. She's important. This is my kernza. I made hay on kernza, and that is the standing rye I'm taking for some seed. And then we went roller crimping. Rye is awesome too because, and I don't know where these pictures are. I didn't get my manure spread.
I love it, uh-oh. So good it hurts, I don't want it. I gotta have it, uh-oh.
I didn't get my manure spread early enough, just my personal timing and logistics. So the rye was very tall. It was, you know, getting ready to pollinate. I went out there with the manure spreader and I spread my whole pile off in 2 or 3 days, and you can see the tracks there, but the rye springs back up. You know, I was like, this is awesome because I could see then the nitrogen uptake in the rye immediately because I start at one end of the field, the spreader runs low on the other, right? So I could see where that nitrogen deficiency is. And now you can see all the tracks out there. So this is probably 2 weeks after I spread manure, green planted, rolled, and
You roll it down right after you plant.
yeah, right after.
Could you have waited until the beans got the second time?
I could. I've been scared of that. So if you look at Rick Clark and, you know, his program, and, you know, he used to say 30 days to get your beans in early, and then, you know, wait to roller crimp, and then you'll get a nodulation and branching response on the soybean. I've been terrified that I'd kill them.
Just do it, it's not that scary.
What's that?
Just do it. It's not too scary, I've been doing it.
Just do it?
Several years, till I ran over views at D3 that were almost a foot tall.
All right.
Wait, do it in the heat of the day, don't do it first thing in the morning, when they're all brittle. Let them get kind of roughy.
Here you can see, well, maybe you can't see, but, you know, this exposed bean. So I got an open trench here. Just a god-awful, ridiculous amount of rain too, right? In our area, I mean, just constant rain, constant rain, constant rain. And I don't know if that's good or bad. I mean, I think we've got yellowing. These are organic, small red, edible beans. First year ever planting them. Don't know what I'm doing. Doing it in this system. It's supposed to be gluten-free. all this kind of stuff. Huge experiment, but I don't know, looks pretty good, I think. And then we're making this flour product with that. But I wanted to get to, I just took a picture a couple days ago here. Oh, this I love, and I sent this to Mark. My neighbor, pretty good conservationist, but not organic. He's doing vertical till. We're sandy loam soil with slopes. We can grow pretty much everything, anything, but we either have lime rock, rock knobs, or we have heavier soil, and a little in between. But he vertical tilled his field 2 times, then he planted. 48 hours later, we got 2 inches of rain. Can't see it so good there. Well, that's my beans coming up. I have a 30-inch planter. I tried to interplant one year. My GPS, I'm too cheap, so I don't have RTK or anything. So that didn't work very good. So this year I just said, I'm just gonna take a different track. And so you can see at some point I've got 15-inch rows, and then at some point I've got 2-inch rows. But you know, it's interesting. Here it looks like I planted them on 15s. That's RTK right there, baby. Buckwheat was on the year before. You can see all the volunteer buckwheat ahead of the rye. Who cares? Buckwheat's not gonna hurt it. So this is just this little valley completely washed out, and I don't know how much of his topsoil I got. I mean, obviously these rain events are few and far between, but they're getting more frequent. And when they happen, they're huge, right? I mean, this is huge. And he washed out my beans. I threw a little sorghum on the top of there now. Hopefully something comes up. But that's all from his field. He's got gullies. He had to spray 3 times now for the weed effect. So these are the benefits of cover cropping, soil health, etc. It's hard. It's weird. People are gonna think you screwed up. You will screw up. You know, just start trying stuff. And you know, I got years of mistakes and different things and stuff, but I'm convinced, especially, I can't wait to try this on some conventional fields. I think we'll put our organic matter huge, and just have actually more productive yields, actually, which at the end of the day, that's, if yields equals profit, right, which is debatable.